What's up, guys? So today we have Tomer on the podcast. Tomer Alroy. He is a jiu-jitsu practitioner from Israel. So he and I had it's such a weird world we live in, right? We met each other, air quotes, met each other for the first time through Instagram. We were talking, and we kind of loosely kept in touch or would comment on each other's stuff from time to time. And then randomly, I was at a competition in Indiana coaching my students for a competition, and I see him and a crew of guys from Israel, right? Their team. And, again, I'm not thinking to see guys from Israel in Indiana, right? But he was there and he was competing. We chatted for a little bit and, seemed like a super nice guy. So I was like, yeah, let's get him on the podcast sometime, talk to him a little bit. And it's fun to talk to people from different parts of the world about jiu-jitsu because as he'll talk about, jiu-jitsu, it's grown a lot in Israel. And I know that from a friend of mine who was in Tel Aviv, that it's one of those things where it's not like in California. It's one of those things where a lot of these guys are kind of trailblazing the path for other people to follow in the future. So real fun. He's also I don't know if he's got a degree in it or not, but he studied psychology in school. And so when you hear him talk, he'll talk about jiu-jitsu. And again, he has a very much thinks about the mindset and the approach to that and gives some tips on that stuff. So lots of tips on this for people that are thinking about competing or training jiu-jitsu. And hope you guys enjoy this one. Thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web. charlottesweb.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu. Save 15% on the order. If you're someone that is like me, that is super conscious about the supplements that you use, you want to make sure that when you're using a supplement and it works for you, that you're getting the most pure, the best supplement that you can possibly put into your body, with as little sort of air quotes junk as possible. Definitely check out Charlotte's Web. So when it comes to CBD, some of you guys may not know this, but CBD it's become kind of a very popular thing recently in the last few years. And I remember reading a study where they said about 70% of the CBD on the market is mislabeled, meaning there could be almost no CBD in it, there could be too much CBD, or there could be like other things like THC in it that you didn't bargain for. Well, recently, Eugene and I went out to Charlotte's Web's, one of the research farms. One of the things that was very interesting at this research farm that we viewed was the fact that we found out they didn't use any pesticides. They only grew their hemp on ground that had not been treated with pesticides for like a certain number of years, because they found that even if they had pesticides had been used on the ground for a couple of years back, that it would still get into the actual CBD that people were using. And the thing you got to think about is that stuff's being concentrated down into a concentrated tincture or supplement. And so, again, you're going to get high levels of that stuff through that form. And so again, it's one of those things that's really interesting to go through their process and what they do to keep the product as pure and as consistent as possible. And they go through a lot of stuff to do that. And their mission statement, if you read about their story with Charlotte, who they named the company after, it's a really cool story. It's worth a read to understand where the company comes from. And all of the employees that we met, even we met some of them out for lunches and stuff. They share that same mission in their self, that they're making supplements to help each other. So it was a really cool experience. It was really cool to get to talk to those people. So again, it only furthers my comfort in using the supplement myself and encouraging other people to try it and giving it to my students in the gym. So if it's something you'd like to try, if you'd like to try some CBD and see if it has an effect on you, again, everybody's different. Always the disclaimer. So everybody's cannabinoid system is a little bit different, but for me, I've found that it seems to help with improved sleep cycles and also with, inflammation related to training, so basically soreness and things like that. So if you want to check it out, go to their website at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, save 20% on the order. And again, try whatever you'd like. Right now I'm using the different tinctures that they have, the lemon twist and the orange peel and all that stuff. So give them a try and see how it works out for you. Thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. And again, it is a place where you can get everything from t-shirts and gear, gis, rash guard, shorts. It's a one-stop shop for jiu-jitsu. And again, everything's got a cool design. The quality's good. The t-shirts are soft. The rash guards are they're good. I don't know I don't know how you say it, like like everybody wants a soft t-shirt. I don't know what anybody wants out of a rash guard other than you don't want it to tear apart when you're training with it. And I've used his shorts and his rash guards, been using them for a while, and none of them have fallen apart on me yet. So again, I'm a fan of his products, and I like the designs of them. I like good, clean designs that aren't too loud, I guess you'd say. So I'm a big fan of that. You know what I mean?
Which means you're old, Chewy.
Well, I don't know,
loud.
man. No, man. Remember I remember going to like the bar sometimes, and you'd see those older guys wearing like all the Affliction and Ed Hardy shirts. These dudes are like in their 40s.
Not always older guys, Chewy.
Huh?
Not always.
I know. Then there was you. You were rocking your Ed Hardy shirt out.
I never had an Ed Hardy shirt. I did own an Affliction shirt or two.
I bet you ironed it, didn't you? You like ironed it out. Like I'm getting ready for the club. I'm gonna look real nice.
No, dude. But Affliction was not bad at the time. Initially, Affliction was kind of cool, and then it wasn't.
I never liked it. Well, I was like, it's just too much stuff. Like even like when I get like a shirt, I want like a little small logo. I don't want to like.
I'm that way now, Chewy. Now that I know who I am as a older adult, I can't be wearing rhinestones around. People are gonna start thinking I'm strange.
Yeah, I remember someone was talking about it's like they were talking about like making a joke about it, and they said it's like a lion, like talking about Ed Hardy's like a lion raping a giraffe on a skateboard or something. Like it's just the most ridiculous like stuff on there. Like what is going on here? But anyway. There's going to be none of that on Matt's website. So if you guys want to check out some sweet jiu-jitsu gear that is Chewy tested, Chewy approved, head on over to his website at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu. Also, in the near future, we will be doing a run of jiu-jitsu rash guards and shorts, and we will be doing them through Matt. And so there'll be more details on that coming up in the future. And guys, if you would like to join the Chew Crew email list, where you get an email from me usually once a day, Monday through Friday, sometimes the weekends, where you'll get updates. Like, so for instance, when I posted about my jiu-jitsu camp that I recently had at my house and at the gym, it was really fun. We did jiu-jitsu for 3 days straight. I taught all kinds of cool classes. Everybody got some really neat techniques that they've been hitting at their gym. We did Wim Hof breathing and smoothies at my house and did a water plunge. And we did some breathing and stretching at my gym. We did a lot of cool stuff. That the people that get the first crack at anything that I have going on is my email list. And so if you would like to get on that email list and get access to all that stuff and sort of get the heads up on anything coming up, go to chewjitsu.net and chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN, and you can get details on that. Also, for signing up, you'll get a couple free things. You'll get a game plan guide. So if you think it would be in your best interest to have a jiu-jitsu game plan, if you listen to this podcast, you're probably going to understand that you need one. It's a good basic guide to sort of outline your basic game plan. I even show you mine. And then I also give you a free drilling ebook that, again, will show you how to drill techniques, whether you have open mats or you teach classes or you have absolutely no control of your training and you just have to come into the class and roll. So check that out. And then also, guys, if you like the podcast and you enjoy it and you're still listening right now, you're still going through these rolls with us and you're like listening to every little bit, means you probably like us. You probably enjoy the podcast. And you're like, you want this thing to keep going. Well, something you can do that we would appreciate is if you go on to whatever program you listen to this podcast with and just give us a review. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just give us a short review and we'll go through and we'll start giving you guys shout outs. We'll go through and we'll read whenever we get new reviews. We'll give you guys a little shout out and maybe something else in the future. But for now, we'll start with a shout out. So give us a review on iTunes or whatever. Where else can they do the reviews, Eugene?
I believe iTunes, Google Play, I think Spotify.
Does Spotify do reviews?
I don't know. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
wherever you want. Give us the number of stars or thumbs or whatever. How many thumbs you want to give us?
And if it's not the maximum amount of thumbs or stars that can be given, you send us a message and let us know why.
You send us a strongly worded letter and you explain yourself.
Yeah, you say, you know what, guys, here's why you don't deserve 5 stars, and I'm going to give you a 4th star. Huh?
I'll give you 3.5, but there's no half, so I'm rounding up.
So rounding up to 4.
There you go. We'll take it.
Anyway, guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast with Tomer and talk some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and you were here. When were you in the States? When were you? How long ago was that?
Instead, I think May. I think around May.
And you just did that to like just to compete. That's where you and Chewy initially kind of like
Yeah, we
linked
met
up
in
and chatted a
Indianapolis
little bit.
Open. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you were
I was totally not expecting to see you in Indianapolis, you know, because I've followed you. We've followed each other on Instagram for a while, and I knew you were from Israel. But so then, like, I saw you in Indiana. I'm like, what are you doing in Indiana of all places?
My coach is the only person that can make you fly to Indianapolis and then to this place and to the other place just to compete, to gain some experience. It took us to Minsk to compete there. So
Mhm.
you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
yeah. How is the scene in Israel? I mean, it's up and coming. You know, how's the jiu-jitsu scene there now?
Well, it's pretty big actually because they have a lot of support from the government. They helps a lot of athletes. So we compete in different types of organizations. We usually do the IBJJF competition just to gain experience. But our main focus is a JGIF organization, um, which is it's the similar rules, but it's like country based. So it's like two guys from Israel against two guys from Abu Dhabi and Brazil and every other country.
Okay.
And whoever gets the podium gets a scholarship from the government, from the state, and then they cover flights expenses and training and accommodation. So and it gives like a monthly salary.
What's like the so what was the purpose of like the government like supporting jiu-jitsu? Kind of what's the reason for it?
They have the Olympic sport and they have the non-Olympic sports. So the jiu-jitsu is under the non-Olympic sport.
Okay.
Their goal is to support the non-Olympic sport, to get more recognition and to get it better. And that's something that really helps us evolve the jiu-jitsu because they help us support bringing guests to train with us. So we do a lot of, before COVID, we did a lot of training camps from all around the world.
And so they
Sabrina
got
was
you
scheduled to come as well.
Yeah, they got you over, like to the States, right? And you guys that was
Also we go a lot to train in the States or in other countries. But before COVID, we brought a lot of people to train with us. Talison Soares was with us. A lot of the famous guys came to train with us, and that helped us evolve the jiu-jitsu and train with other people. Learn some new techniques, and then competition on top of that, and then we really started to grow from there.
So you said salary, right? Like, so what kind of? I always find this interesting when countries or different organizations do this. What kind of salary could someone expect if they won that competition?
Well, it's not. It's so you need to compete in the European Championship or the World Championship to get the scholarship. Okay. And then you get a monthly salary. It's nothing too big to help you, live by, but it's something that help you cover the training expenses.
Okay.
And so yeah, you basically you don't spend too much money on competition when you go out to compete, especially if it's outside of Israel. And if you bring guests to help you train, then they cover the expenses as well. You get some type of salary, but again, like I said, it's nothing too big. But if you add like a half-time job, then you're pretty much set if you want to compete full time.
So is jiu-jitsu what you do full time at this point?
Me currently, I'm more moving towards the coaching side, but that's what I did until now. Yeah, I was a full-time student. I competed and trained.
Cool. And how did you get started in jiu-jitsu down there? So obviously someone that's sort of dedicated themselves to it. How did you begin?
Like jiu-jitsu specifically, because I started training at martial arts since I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu I started at around 17.
17. So what was your first martial art?
Karate. Full contact.
Karate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, full contact karate. And then I've moved, when the UFC got more reputation with me and my father, we used to watch a lot of UFC and then start to dig around YouTube videos about, how to do the dodge stroke, how to do the double leg, how to do stuff like that. And then we started to do jiu-jitsu, what we thought is jiu-jitsu. But we found a Brazilian guy that lived in Israel, that he was a brown belt at the time, and he started teaching us, a little bit of jiu-jitsu. And yeah, that's how we started. Um, and after the army, I served as the army for 3 years. I flew around the world, just to train. I trained the Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand, in Phuket, which was an amazing experience. I met a lot of UFC guys at the beginning of their career. Peter Young was there, and we trained together, which was really cool. I was purple belt at that time. I wasn't any good. Like, I still think that I didn't have any good jiu-jitsu back then. Um, but yeah, and then when I came back to Israel after training around the world, then I started to, like, my coach started to push me to the more of for the competition type of style. And then, I started to really get interested in how to, to study jiu-jitsu, because I felt like in jiu-jitsu you have answer to everything. You just need to find the if you have any questions, then you just need to find the answer, and it's there. You just need to look for it. So that's something that really, really got me excited about studying jiu-jitsu.
When do you think your jiu-jitsu started to evolve, like actually get better? You said you didn't feel very good at purple belt, like you weren't very terribly good. When do you think you kind of turned the corner, and what do you think it was about that situation, that experience?
I think it's I don't know. I think back in the days they had like apps for BJJ instructionals, and I remember I had the Bernardo Faria deep half guard instructional, and that was the first one I got, and I was like, dude, there's a whole concept for this game. Like, there's a lot of techniques for to keep doing one after the other, and I was like, that's a full system. And then I found out another instruction, and so I started downloading every one of them, and that's when I felt like I had like the epiphany, like, whoa, you can study this. And then I just started to do more memberships to the AOJ, to the Mendes Brothers Online Academy, and Lucas Lepri's Academy, and Atos Academy, and just starting to study a lot of those types of game. And the moment I think my whole team started to get really good at jiu-jitsu is when we started to compete a lot, and to do a lot of training camps with other people from around the world, because you get exposed to many different types of athletes and competitor, and everybody has their own game and their own style and their own experience. You start to learn from each other.
What do you think the benefit of competing is often? Because I have my own thoughts on this, and I've noticed that whenever I compete or whenever I watch people compete, they tend to get better faster. Why do you think that competing in jiu-jitsu made your jiu-jitsu better?
Well, first of all, it gets you in a perspective of how good is your technique when you need to execute them in a real life situation, and I think it's something that if you evaluate your fights after every fight, then you can see what works for you and what's not. So it's something that we do a lot after we compete. We have like a match evaluation sheet that we do this exercise. Like, after each competition, we go over the fight that we did, and we see how we fought technique wise and how we did mentally wise, and we see like which thoughts help us in the fights that we won, and which thoughts didn't help us. Like, if I had some negative thoughts, did that help me during the fight, or it didn't? It can help me if this negative thought gave me a bit of a push and motivation push to fight better, or it can hurt my performance. And we look over the technique that we did in this fight. We can start seeing like a pattern of technique that works for us, and we go back to the training room, and then we start to develop this type of game. And then if we see that it keeps working for us in competition, we keep evolving this game. So you can see like a learning curve and a bigger improvement from the competitor, because they always have like a trial and error when they compete.
Okay. Now, this completely has nothing to do with it, but it caught my eye. What's the story about the Dragonball Z characters in the background?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to move this way. So I was traveling in Thailand, like I told you, and I saw in this market this 3 Dragonball Z, like father and son, and Vegeta.
Yeah, Vegeta, then Gohan and Goku, right?
Gohan and on the other side, I have wait, I need to move this one. I have Deadpool over here
Okay.
and Rocky over there.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I just really think they are really, inspirational character.
Yeah.
All of them. So I really I put them in my office just to give me inspiration every day.
Oh yeah. When I was a kid, I used to I remember I grew up watching that show, Dragonball Z, and I remember, when I was younger, they didn't have it dubbed very far through. So I remember it would get to like the middle of, what was it? I think it's been so long since I watched it. I think it was like the Frieza saga or whatever. And they're like fighting, and then it would reset and start again. And then because they didn't have any more episodes dubbed, so they just kept reruns. They just kept going back and forth. And then over time they got it. But I watched it a ton as a kid. So I was like looking back there, I was like, oh, it's got some Dragon Ball Z characters.
Yeah. Well, I'm a nerd. I'm proud of it. So Dragon Ball, it's something that gave me a lot of motivation during the years,
For sure. Well, I think about it differently because what used to be kind of nerdy back in the day is just kind of normal. Like, I mean, if I showed those pictures to like my students, any of them that are like 35 or so and under would know exactly who that is. And like kids today still watch that. So I remember thinking about, we were talking about this at the gym, like, like when we get older, like, our generations. How old are you, Tomer?
I'm 28.
28. Yeah. So I'm like 36. So we're not that far apart. So like, our generations, as we get older, like, back in the day, like my grandpa would, whittle wood and stuff in his rocking chair. When we get old, we're gonna like be talking about playing PlayStation and video games and like watching Japanese anime characters, instead of Looney Tunes. So it used to be quote weird, and now I feel like it's far more normal. Like I'll come in and several of the guys in the gym that are in their 30s are like talking about some new anime that they watched recently or whatever.
Definitely.
I don't think it's really nerdy anymore.
Nah, today, it's like a hipster. It's like a hipster thing,
Yeah.
Now, what was nerdy back then? Now it's the thing.
It's the thing to do.
But honestly, like before I compete, I always put I always put like a motivation speech from one of my favorite animes right now. So like that's what before my last competition, I think I watched it like 30 times in a row, like back and forth all the time to get me pumped up before the competition. And then I came in strong because I was so hyped because of it.
Do you remember which anime it was?
It was My Hero Academia.
Okay.
It's a new one. It's a new one, but it had like good moments.
Yeah, I've heard my students, I've heard a couple of those guys talk about it. So
yeah, I think it's not the same like Dragon Ball Z, but I think it's like a new generation of Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd never watched any of this stuff. I was like, I watched one episode of Dragon Ball Z, and like the whole time they're just running at each other, like flying through the air.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and yelling.
And then they're like screaming, "I'm gonna get you!" And then that was it. And I was like, "Oh," and that's the episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I didn't even do anything." I was like, "You didn't even hit each other." So I was like,
"Yeah, you just screamed at each other for like 5 minutes."
Yeah. It's anticipation. I don't know. I think it's a thing you're either into or not. Like I don't know. I was always like into like X-Men cartoons and Spider-Man and all that stuff. Those little animated cartoons. As well. That was huge for me.
I remember watching the old Dragon Ball Z cartoons, and I remember I was like, man, I wish I could like power up and get like big and bulky like that. That would be awesome, Just scream for a little bit and muscles start to bulge out of your neck. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a dream of every anime kid,
Yeah, right.
Scream as hard as it can to just be stronger,
Oh, dude, I got a great story about this. So since we're talking about anime, so check this out. In like the Japanese animes where they like run with their arms back like this. Yeah. So I found out apparently that's because it takes less work to draw, because then you just got to draw the legs. You don't have to draw the upper body like doing locomotion. So it just like I think that's what I read. It's basically just like when they do this, the upper body stays the same, and so they don't have to do frames for that, and then they can just do the legs moving. Well, But it's become this thing in a lot of animes. You watch that, you see people running like that. Well, I remember watching Dragon Ball Z, and there was like one of the scenes where I think Goku or Gohan's training, and they're running like that. And as soon as they run like that, they just book it. Well, I remember in my football, we were doing football conditioning, and so we were, American football. So we were just doing laps around our track, and they just made us run a mile at the end of the session. And so I was finishing my last lap, and there was a few of us that are kind of around in the same pack together running. And I'm like, and in my head, I'm thinking, I watched this episode of Dragon Ball Z or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just leave these guys in the dust. And I put my arms back and I started running, and quickly, like, I couldn't run nearly as fast, but I remember like one of the guys who was like a senior, so he's a little bit older than me. He kind of goes, "What are you doing?" I kind of like, why are you being so weird? And then I went back to running like normal. I was like, no, nothing. I just had a scratch back there. Back to running like normal.
Didn't work.
We're all horrible runners in jiu-jitsu, by the way. I love to watch people run in jiu-jitsu, and they're all like, nobody knows how to run correctly.
Nobody knows how to run.
It's so funny.
We're lazy. So, running is not for lazy people. We don't know how to run.
I don't know, man. It's just like, I think it's a skill, and like you lose over time, we get all rounded and they just hunched over, and I think watch a bunch of hunched over people run around. It's pretty funny.
After training jiu-jitsu, yeah. So you start to move differently.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell when a guy do jiu-jitsu just by his walk, right? So
I
think maybe that's the thing.
Yeah. I remember going to a tournament once. I was in New York, and it was my first time in New York, and I was super overwhelmed at the time. And I was there for the New York Open. And I remember like trying to find this place. And again, I didn't have a smartphone or GPS. I had like MapQuest directions, right? So I'm like looking through here. And I see this line of people walking down like the street, and like several of them were bald or had really short hair, and they had that walk. I was like, oh, it's that way.
These are my people.
These are my people. Yes, I can tell by the way that you walk that you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah,
and I was, sure enough, I walked over there and I found this sea of guys wearing like cargo shorts, hoodies, and had jet backpacks, and were signing up for the tournament.
It's the same thing that I tell about people to people about my ears. Like they tell you don't want to do like a surgery to take it off, or not my ear, but the cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
And I tell them like that's a sign for people to know what I do. If people recognize my ears, they know not to mess with it. It's like something that you want to have.
Yeah. Have you ever been stopped? Have someone ever? Because I get it all the time. People will like ask me if I wrestled or fought or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you get that sometimes where people say, "Hey, do you wrestle or do you fight or something?"
Yeah, all the time. When I visit outside of Israel, all the time they stop me to ask if I do jiu-jitsu, if I do MMA, if I train UFC. Depends on the country.
Yeah.
In Vegas, it was fun though, because they gave me some discounts in some stores, because they thought there was a UFC event at the weekend that I was in Vegas, so they thought that I'm coming to fight at the event. So they gave me 10% off. So that was cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Give me the fighter discount.
Yeah, I got the fighter discount.
That's interesting. Hey, Tomer, I'm curious, going back to it, like you were talking about like studying your matches and questions and like filling out questionnaires. How did that come about? What are some of the questions you guys actually answer? Like, what are you looking for when you're kind of dissecting a competition or a match?
Yeah. So, like I said before, we have the mental part, which is the thought that we had before the fight and during the fight. It usually like revolves around like what sentences do you tell yourself like before you compete and while you compete. If you get scored on, do you get frustrated and just say shit, I don't know what to do now, or you stay focused and tell yourself like, okay, I'm going to get the points back. So that is something that it's different between every athlete, but you want to know that. You want to know what to tell yourself in that moment. And you have the technical part of the game. For example, if I know that like my strategy is to put the guy in my close guard, which sweeps or submission attempts did I try to do that work well for me during that competition, or if if any? Like, did I even manage to close the guard? Maybe I need to go back and work on, closing the guard on my opponent, finding ways how to close the guard, because an experienced opponent won't let you just close the guard on him. And after dissecting the fight, you have another thing that I didn't mention is if we did a proper warm-up. If I did like my warm-up routine, like I like to do, if I hear my music, if I did my stretching or whatever that I like to do. If I didn't have time to do it, did I have something else that I did instead of that? And if not, then if it helped me or not. I know some guys in my gym that they don't like to warm up. If they do warm up, that we found out that it actually hurts their performance when they try to warm up, because they get nervous by doing the warm up.
Really?
I do believe that you should do a warm up before your fight. But it helps them to come to where they are right now. So you don't want to mess with that.
How do you personally feel like what kind of stuff do you do for warm up? Because for me, my warm up is super, super important. If I warm up, then I get to the match. And, for me, I think of it this way. When I'm training in the gym, maybe I don't know how it is for you, I have my best rolls, usually several rolls into the training session. It's like once my body's nice and warmed up, then I'm going, right? And it's in those like middle rounds where I'm not tired, but I'm not I'm not cold. I'm right there warmed up and I'm ready to go. And so I try to get to that state when I compete where I'm warmed up, I'm sweaty, and I'm ready to go. How do you feel that a warm-up is super important and useful for you personally?
For me personally, I'm exactly like you. I really, when I go to fight, I really want to feel like I'm sweaty and that I know that I properly warmed up. And you said something that is really important. You said that your best rolls are the ones that mid training, right? And my perfect warm-up, my perfect ideal warm-up is doing some dynamic movements, some not stretching, but like I consider it like a yoga flow, some mobility work, then some drilling, nothing too complicated, just drilling with a friend. Make sure to have something fun in the background, whether it's music if you like to hear music, or just laughing with a friend while you drill. Keep a good breathing while you do that. And do some live rolls, but really flow rolls. Like put the bad rolls, like you said, the first rolls during the warm-up. So your fight at the competition is like the third roll, the fourth roll that you already did. So all the mistake that you do during the warm-up, you do that during the warm-up. When you go to compete, you're fully fresh to go. Like you feel warmed up and ready to go, because you already did your warm-up and you already did the bad rounds.
What do you do if you have like a tournament where you don't really have a mat to roll on to get your warm-up rolls? What do you do in lieu of that?
I would, if you don't have a mat, right?
But because again, if you can roll, then you can roll and just kind of warm up there. But what happens if you don't have a mat?
If I have a friend with me, I will drill some stand-up, some takedown drills, like pummeling, fighting for the underhook, just to feel a person, that I fight with a person. Of course, the ideal thing to do is to also work on your guard passing or your guard movement. But if you don't have a mat, I will drill, takedown drills, pummeling drills, and then running around a little bit just to keep my heart rate. Yeah.
I always feel like, I don't know, again, don't know for you, and you let me know what you think. For me, whenever I get to the tournament, there's always this point where, like, when I walk into the room where all the mats are, I instantly feel like the nervousness kind of kick up in me. And it's like, I can almost feel it. It's like I feel like a certain level of, it feels like weakness in my grips and my legs. And then once I start warming up, and I'll do the same thing that you do, I'll go through like a lot of grip fighting, hand fighting, and then like takedown drills. It's like once I get that blood flow going and I get my breathing into a good rhythm, then it's like I feel good again. I feel great. I'm ready to go. But I have to do my warm up, because if I don't do that and I don't move around with the body, then I almost I feel weak almost. It's like I have to kind of get that first, maybe get that adrenaline kind of moving or whatever is going on, but try to get that first blood or that first heart rate sort of raise going, that first, we say blowing the lungs out a little bit, get breathing heavy for a little bit. And then I feel perfect.
Yeah, because the thing is, when we actually fight, when to fight is already it comes, it's you feel natural, like you feel like you want to do, like you do what you want to do. The hard part is the before, is when, like you said, when you enter the competition and you see the mats and you see some guys already start fighting and you see the referees. Then when you feel like the hunch in your stomach, and you start telling yourself, oh, here we go again, the stress and all that. But it's something that you can work on, because we really are getting used to routine. So every time you go to a competition and you feel this stress and you tell yourself, okay, now I'm in a stressful environment, your brain will remember that. And every time you'll go to a competition, you'll keep feeling the same feeling. Something that really helps us, well, it's not like a scientific thing, but I think that it's something that we got used to it, and then we start to really enjoy competition. Is our coach told us to do, the whole the whole tournament. So we did like gi, no gi, and open weights for both of them. So we basically came at 9 and we finished the competition at 7-8 p.m.
Yeah.
But we did just only in the open, in the IBJJF Open. So we start to just really we came to a competition, and it felt like an open mat, because we had such a long day. We start to get used to like the ups and downs. So okay, I need to get myself ready 5 minutes before the fight, 10 minutes before the fight. Then we lower the adrenaline a little bit. We get calm, because you always have this break after the gi and the no gi. You have like a 2 hour, 3 hours, so to lower yourself a little bit. And when we start to enjoy it, because we came with some friends, so we start to have fun during the competition, and we didn't look at it as something that is huge and big, so that's something I really feel that helps us a lot.
How much of your warm-up is really mental, and how much of your preparation is really mental for you when you're trying to get ready for a competition or tournament?
Well, the mental part should come before the competition. You don't want to get yourself mentally ready like at the day of the competition, in my opinion, because you want to do the mental work before that and be ready for the day. We start to put a lot of emphasis on mental work in the recent years, because a lot of people tell you that it's 70% mental, but not a lot of athletes are training their mental part of the game. And the mindset training is a muscle at it on its own. You need to train that. So we start to implement a lot of mental training during our competition classes. Not just one of them is like adding some finishers. That is something that wrestling do a lot at the end of their training. They do some finishing work, some intervals, stuff like sprints work, just to feel that you always have more energy after the live sparring are ended. But we start to implement some more aspect of the game. A lot of practicing competition, for example. We start to do a lot of at the end of the training, we do a circle and we mimic a competition environment. We have a ref and we have two guys in. They need to fight for the first point, for example, the first guy who do like 2 points, or the first guy who do a point. And we have a ref, somebody is the ref, and we have 2 guys in the corner to help the athletes and some spectators. So our athletes are getting used to this feeling of competing. And we do that not only for a competition in a jiu-jitsu, but also we compete in, some small stuff, like who can do let's say we do the knee slides. So we compete of how many knee slides you do in 1 minute, So we start to get this habit of being a more competitive environment, but in a good and healthy way, not just by I want to kill you way.
Yeah.
So like as far as like if you find yourself in a mental kind of a funk or kind of a down slope, how do you build your confidence back up? What do you like to do as far as sometimes you hear people say, well, you should train with people that are not as good as you to kind of build yourself up a little bit. What do you like to do if you're maybe struggling, going through a lull?
Well, to build, like you said, if you want to build your confidence a little bit, I think it's good to train with people that are not as good as you. Not all the time, but even as far as like 60 to 70% of the time to train with people that you're better than them, because first you want to feel confident doing your moves, and second you want to feel confident, when you train, especially if you go back after fitting down a bit. Because if you always train with people that as good as you're not going to try anything new. So you're gonna actually hurt your performance, because you're going to train the same thing over and over without exploring new techniques and new moves and new ideas. But if you feel like you had like a few bad competitions and you feel like your jiu-jitsu is not good anymore, then remember the fights that you did good. So watch some of your fights that you do some good stuff in them. Like prepare like a mini highlight of yourself, winning some competition, you're doing some moves during the competition, and watch them and remind yourself how good you were doing those moments, and find this feeling that you have when you watch these fights, and remember that feeling when you train again. And that will help you feel a little bit more confident. It's more of like a visualization techniques that we like to use to build that confidence.
Now, did you, because obviously you're sort of focused on jiu-jitsu now, but did you ever have other careers, or did you go to school for anything else while you were kind of still in limbo with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I studied psychology. I studied psychology, and I'm going to continue into sports psychology later years.
Do you think that psychology, like the focus on psychology through school, do you think that's been useful to you with your jiu-jitsu training?
Yeah, definitely, because well, it's not that the study itself gave me some tools that I like to use, but it's more using this tool in a combination of fighting and talking to a lot of high-level competitors. And you start to see, you start to ask them questions like, what do you like to do before your fights, and what do you like to do after the fights, and how's your training regime looks like. And you start to see the patterns that they have for each athlete and for each world champion. And it's not, everybody says it's like consistency and hard work, but you start to see how they like to manage their time in a good way, and how they like to train, which, of course, everyone has their own unique way that they like to train, but they do have a system to help them evolve, and I think it's something that it's a little bit lacking in jiu-jitsu right now, but they start to evolve it really. It starts to really evolve right now. Like they start to build like a system of consistent training and systemized training to improve the athletes.
So what's an example of maybe a habit or a approach to training that you've pulled away from someone else that you learned from, through your travels and everything else, that you've been able to implement into your jiu-jitsu training that's been very useful to you?
So let's say, for example, that the mindset of you want to come to train to be a better jiu-jitsu athlete. You don't want to come and train just so you tell yourself, okay, I trained for today. You really want to come and improve, and you're improving jiu-jitsu by doing jiu-jitsu. So it's a lot of situational and specific sparring. It's something that I think it's really, really important, especially for high-level athletes and for competitors, to really put themselves in specific weak points that they have, and to really dig in that and improve those specific areas. So it's not just about like starting side control and escape. That's a really good example for situational sparring. But if you, for example, let's say you really want to work on your single leg X guard, and you have a pretty good sweeps, but you're not finishing them. Like you always get the position, you get the sweep, but the guys always jumps on top, and you find yourself with an advantage. So put yourself inside the single leg X with the grips that you want, and your goal is just to sweep the other person. And the goal for the person on top is just to stay on top, even not even trying to pass your guard, just to give you resistance. So it's a little bit more of an advanced way of drilling, but then you start to see a lot of different reactions. And there's no ego involved. Like you tell the guy, like your goal, the guy on top, you win if you just stay on top. That's
Right.
it. That's the only thing you need to do. Don't even submit that guy. Just break the grips, start to stall the fight. And the guys on the bottom, you get your grips, you get whatever you need, but just finish your sweep.
Mm-hmm.
If finishing the sweep is your problem, if your problem is not getting the single leg X, you're not getting into the position, then start putting yourself in different guards. And your goal is just to enter the single leg X.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of your partner is just to try to avoid getting into the single leg X. And then you can go back to the drawing board, start drilling a little bit more of entries for the specific guard, and then put yourself again in the guard. Start to get the guard again. And if you're getting good at putting people in the single leg X, then move to finishing the sweeps. And then you perfect each part of the move, from the entry to the position to the finishing mechanic. So you have no holes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's some form of training that I really like to do.
How early would you implement something like that if you're trying to incorporate a new technique, a new position, or even a submission into your game? How much time are you going to give yourself before you feel like, and when do you know that you feel that it's ready to be put in competition?
Well, the first phase of learning a new technique is, seeing the new technique, the first time learning it, just drilling it for the first time. The first part, the second part that I think is when you learn the new technique already, after you felt it, is drilling it with a little bit more movement. It's still a drilling, it's still methodical drilling, but you add a little bit more movement, and maybe you connect to another technique after this, for example, for the new sweep that you learn, and then start doing it on sparring. First of all, start, if, for example, if you learn the new sweep from the single leg X, start to do it on sparring. If you feel, and then you can review and improve in like a cycle. So you do it in sparring, you feel like you don't get the one leg X, you don't enter enough to the one leg X, then start drilling entries for the guard. If you do manage to enter the guard and you almost finish the sweep, then you need to move into specific sparring. Put yourself inside the guard, inside the position, and just finish the sweep. After you feel like it works for you in training, after you try it again in sparring and you manage successfully to enter the guard, finish the sweep, do the sweep and finish the sweep, then I will do it in competition as well. In a moment of stress, you really feel like you have limited amount of technique, so you really want to do it like fast. If I ask you to do a technique and it's going to get you like more than 3 seconds to tell me which is your best move from a De La Riva guard, then you need to work on your De La Riva sweeps, because you're not feel comfortable enough to do that.
Yes, that's really coming down to really understanding your game plan really well. Yeah. That's one thing I think it's really useful for people. It can seem almost, to go back to a term we used earlier, nerdy, right? To like write down, or even if it's in your head or whatever, but identify like what are your moves from what positions, and especially when it comes to competition time, you can't think as much as you might like, right? Like when you're competing, you're almost, at least in the beginning of the match, if it's a really good tough match against someone that's very good and your guys are fighting like tit for tat, almost all of it's muscle memory, right? You're just you're reacting. And I think this is why it's important for people to have a game plan for their jiu-jitsu. So this way, when you're in the gym, like you said, you have to do this stuff in your gym leading up to the competition. You can't it can't be the day of, right? Your mindset cannot be trained. Your muscle memory cannot be trained the day of. It's too late. That's the stuff that has to happen beforehand, months before in the gym.
And again, of course, there's a difference between black belts and white belts or blue belts. For white belt, I'll just tell them like, go and have fun. Doesn't matter. That just doesn't matter. That's why I really like competition that gives you at least 2 fights for the competitor, because maybe you had a bad day, you just lost the first fight. At least you have another one just to feel like you did something else. Especially at the beginning when you're not experienced. You want to have this good feeling after competition. And when you start to get into blue belts and you maybe did a little bit more competition, then I will start, like you said, telling him to have a plan A and plan B. Like, what happens if you get swept? What guard do you want? You like half guard? Do half guard. do what you do, half guard. And if you like to play on top, what pass that you like to do, you like to work the knee slide, then just dig for the knee slide every time. And then for a purple belt, it's a little bit more of a technical and a strategical way. And brown belt, it's even getting harder. And when you go to black belts, you really want to know which moves are worked for you like 90% of the time. That you can do that to anyone. You can sweep anyone if you do that sweep correctly.
Sure.
There's no magical sweep that works all the time.
Yeah, and especially early on, for most people, I'm sure it's the same. I used to be terrible. My first match always used to be my worst one. As soon as the first match was over, the rest of my matches, I was having fun. I felt like I was at the gym rolling, just going a little bit harder. But it was always that first match. Once I could get that out of the way, it was like all the nerves were gone. I felt so much better.
Exactly. And it's a good point because, people sometimes forget how important is the bracket. So, sometimes you can get the hardest match at the beginning of your match.
Yeah.
Or at the beginning of the competition. And that can change the whole thing. Like, the two best fighters of the bracket can meet up for the first fight. And if you get him on his second fight after he had a war with the other guy in the first fight, it's a different type of match. If you're gonna get him fresh, so that's a thing as well. That's why going back to what you said earlier about evaluating our fights, you can still have a great competition even if you lose, because if you fought great and still lost, it's not a bad match. That happens. We're all going to lose at some point of time. And you can fight great and still you can fight bad and still win, and that doesn't make it a good match.
Yeah.
You want to evaluate your performance by your competition by performance, not by winning medals. Because at the end of the day, you want to have a more of a legacy than just medals at your closet.
Well, and I think also when you view it in that sort of frame, then you're always trying to improve rather than simply just win. Because again, like you said, maybe you fight maybe you know how to fight a really ugly match and you can win, and you can maybe stall in points or something like that. Sure, that might be a way to win, but there's a ceiling to that. Eventually you're just not going to get any better at stalling, right? But when you're focused on, okay, I won the match, but where could I have improved? It really wasn't the best match. That's a better approach to take, I think, when you're thinking about long term. Because when you think about it, every one of us is eventually, if we do this stuff long enough, we're going to get to the point where we can't compete anymore, but we're going to want to train still. And so I think that the competitions, I think they have a nasty habit of sort of overshadowing everything that goes on. Because they're fun, they're exciting. It's exciting, and so people become so obsessed with them. But I think that people have to remember that you're doing competitions ultimately to improve your jiu-jitsu overall, right? Like you do them, and they're a part of jiu-jitsu. They're a facet of jiu-jitsu, but it's not everything. And so it should just be used as part of a technique to get your jiu-jitsu better, and it can be a way to experiment and test your game against people who don't know you or don't know your game as well as your training partners do.
Exactly. And it's a huge difference between a professional fighter and someone who do it for fun. When you're a professional fighter, you need to look at it as a marathon, not as a sprint. You want to look at a long term. So it's like judging your performance, trying to win not just by the flick of an ear. And if you do it for fun, then the focus should be on your performance and in the experience. If you're not enjoying competing, then don't compete. You don't have to do it. I truly believe that if you train jiu-jitsu, you should at least compete once, just for the experience, and then decide if you like it or not. But of course, if you're a professional fighter, then you should find the way to enjoy the competition for the long run, to improve your performance and make the most out of it.
If someone's healthy enough, I really encourage people to compete until they win at least once.
Yes.
Because you could compete and lose and have a terrible experience.
Exactly.
And think, oh man, this isn't for me. But then if you go out and win and you get your hand raised and you have that feeling, you may not feel anything. You may not like it, but you might be like a lot of people, like, that was fun. That was exciting. Exactly. And I want to do that again. Because again, I know that for me, like I started competing in wrestling in high school, and I remember competing in wrestling, and my first match was a loss. I remember I went out there and the guy creamed me, just beat the crap out of me, cross-faced me, pinned me real quick. Yeah. And I remember I told my coach, I was like, I suck at this. And I was so upset. I was like, I was crying and I was upset about it. And I was like, I don't want to compete. I'm terrible at this stuff. Like just whatever. And then I competed like later that week on Thursday, and then I won. And I was so excited. Like I was like, this is so cool. Like whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm hooked. I have to do it, because it was such a fun thing to feel that feeling of like winning and then getting your hand raised. And, it's weird. And it's funny how it changes, but the feelings are still there. I remember competing last year at the Nogi Pans, and I hit this really cool back take that I've been working on for a couple of years.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember I wasn't even excited. Like I didn't get up and think, yeah, I beat that dude. I was just excited that I hit this move in competition, under the basically really stressful situations. Especially it's pretty much the highest stress situation we can put ourselves in jiu-jitsu is a competition.
Yeah.
And I find, and I've been trying to work on this technique, and I finally hit it. I've been trying it for a couple of years, trying to nail it. It just never wasn't quite there. And I finally nailed it. And I remember I got up and I was like, yes, I finally hit it. Now, I didn't even care about the other person so much. He was a really good opponent, but I was more focused on I hit the move that I was working on. That was, and where I am now a lot of times. And, I think you can get to this point after you've won some stuff and you can kind of be like, okay, I've won a few things. Why else am I doing this? And for now, it's like, I compete because I want to like test out these techniques and see how they work. And it's kind of a challenge to myself. Like I honestly don't even think about the winning and the losing so much as it is, I'm going to try to hit this move on these people and let's see if it works.
Yeah. And look how good approach it is, because like you said, you want to see how good you can do the technique during the competition. It's something that you can control. You cannot control how good is the other guy or what day he had or what bracket did you get. You can only control like how good you're willing to fight, like your effort and your attitude. If you come in a good attitude, like you said you do, and you put you tell yourself you're going to put 100% effort fighting this fight, then whatever's going to happen, but you have control over it. That's something that I tell myself before every fight. I tell myself, like, Tomer, you're going to have fun, yes, and you're going to put 100% doing whatever moves you want to do. And if you lose, that's fine. You're going to live and fight another day, but you're probably going to win if you go with this attitude.
Yeah, that was exciting for us to see, Chewy. Like when you hit that move, like we knew, like, because you've been hitting it over and over in practice. You've been getting the back take into the submission, and we were just pumped. Well, I knew that when you stood up and you kind of like, shook your fists a little bit, like you were celebrating the submission, like not the win, but like the technique,
the sequence.
Yeah, the sequence, and we were all pumped back. It's like, oh, good, it works. It's not just working everybody at the gym, it works everywhere else too. It was just cool to see that you were working that thing and actually worked in competition.
Well, right, because you come up with these things that you do, and sometimes you learn them from like online sources or from other seminars or other coaches. That sequence, I'm sure someone else has done it. I'm not saying that, but I never learned it from anyone else. It was something I figured out. And so it was a move that I had figured out on my own, a sequence that I figured out on my own that I took into a competition and hit.
Who's inspired your jiu-jitsu? Like, is there someone you trained with that really impacted you, or someone maybe even you learned from? You said you learned from Bernardo's videos. Is there someone that really kind of like changed the trajectory or kind of really inspired what your game looks like?
Yeah, Rafael Mendez all the time. Well, both of the Mendez brothers are really helped me. But I did a lot of private classes with Rafa, and every time I finished the private class, I felt like, he opened like a new world to me, not just by showing me new techniques, but his approach to the fight, because he's so artistic in his movement. So we always like had a new ideas and have like, adding some new stuff to my game. Of course, he's not the only one who helped me evolve my game, but I felt like he's the one that always inspired me to to think outside of the box and try some new moves and try some new drilling method and try some new approaches to your fights. I remember like one of the first training that I did there. I came with a tunnel vision of like the fight should look like this. You need to sweep the guy, pass his guard, and choke him out. And then they told me like, yeah, but you're not going to win all of your fights like that, because some guys are, they won't open up their game. They're just going to stall. So you have to win by the 2 points or by the advantage, because they don't give you anything else, even if you try. So you have to know what you do. If you know you're going to fight like this type of opponent, then be ready for that. And we start to implement a lot of different strategies because of that. Starting to gain some points from positions that are not a conventional sweeps. For one of them is, when you double pull, you have a timer for like 20 seconds before your ref's going to get you up. But if you get a foot lock, he won't get you up until you release the foot lock. So first of all, it's a good strategy to breathe a little bit, before the fight starts. But it's also a good strategy to attack the toe hold and get the other guy to turn around and escape. If you both get out of the mat, it's 2 points for you. So you started with the 2 points already. And then you can double pull again and get up. So you have 2 points and an advantage. So even if he sweeps you, you're still in the lead. So we always have to chase after the points, or you're always one step ahead in the fight. And it's much easier to fight an opponent that always need to chase after you, and you don't need to chase after him.
Just being first. And then Chewy, that's kind of we talked about, not hesitating, knowing what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Initially, just be first and implement your game plan, because then you're going off of your game plan. They're reacting to what you're doing.
Well, and then also knowing how to play the points game if you're in a points competition, super important. There was one tournament I had probably, was it 6 or 7 years ago. I remember I rolled with the guy, and I mean, if it was a roll in the gym, I would have felt like I got the better of the exchange. I had the back for a long time. I couldn't get the second hook in, so I was playing halfback trying to choke him. I had like a ton of advantages because I had him in almost a choke over and over and over again and all this different stuff. Almost had all these positions. The only problem is that early in the match, he had gotten 2 points on me. And so what happened was he had those 2 points. Now, it was like within the first minute, I immediately reversed the position, everything else, and I'm working my way up. And so he had a lead of like 2 points or whatever it was. But again, after that initial minute, I'm chasing these positions, and he did a good job of turtling and then not allowing me to get the second hook in for the back and, that kind of thing. And then I remember he ended up beating me by this small margin. And I remember, he's yelling and screaming and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I forgot about getting the friggin' points because I got so focused on the submission.
Yeah.
And then we went against each other again later on that year, and I played a much smarter game against him because I knew that he was good about blocking points. And so I played a much tighter game on him and beat him the second time by a pretty good amount of points because I had to be smart about it that time. So playing, if you're in a point competition, you got to learn how to play the rules because there's a lot of techniques. It's just like any other sport, like an American football. If we're trying to run down the clock or whatever, they'll go out and they'll take a knee and just wait it out and then reset. Or if it's in basketball, if they're trying to run the clock down at the very end, they'll dribble the ball until the shot clock goes down to a few seconds and then they'll shoot. And so it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. You got to kind of know how to play those rules as they go. So this way you can give yourself an advantage.
Yeah, because jiu-jitsu athletes are smart. As long as there's points involved, one of the athletes or both of them will try to play with the point system, and that it's like something that there's something good in it and bad in it, because the bad side is that you start to see more and more more of a strategic jiu-jitsu and not like the more beautiful jiu-jitsu, because people are trying to play by the rules. But the moment they're going to change the rule, that will have to force the players to play differently.
Yes.
We compete in one organization, which is the United World Wrestling Organization. They have
Uh-huh.
a grappling section. It's the wrestling organization, but they have a grappling section. And the good thing about it, it's that they're trying to go for the Olympic as a grappling
Okay.
genre. And the point system is the same like wrestling. So if I pull guard, he gets 2 points. Every time your back is on the mat, you get 2 points. So even if you mount on me and I sweep you to close guard, I sweep. If I turn you to close guard, I get 2 points for that. You get the 4 points for the mount, but I get 2 points for the sweep.
Okay.
You know, if you get side control, for example, it's 3 points. So not just by passing the guard. There's no guard in their rules. So
Okay.
let's say if I do an omoplata and you roll forward, and I finish on top on side control, I get 2 points for the sweep and 3 points for the side control.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, it gets a little bit more dynamic fight because there's a lot of points all the time.
Yeah.
And the second thing is you always see action because one of the people is losing.
Yeah.
You know, if the guy's on bottom, he's losing. He has to work, and the guy on top gets a lot of penalties if he's not working, if he's not pushing the pace. So you see a lot of exciting fights.
Yeah. Does this organization? That's one thing about like wrestling. Wrestling is much more strict on the stalling calls, whereas like jiu-jitsu guys can stall and they've got like, it's like they've got their third warning or whatever. I'm like, at what point are we going to just do this? In that organization, do they do advantages?
No advantages.
I'm not a fan of advantages. I think it should either be points or no points, and because I think advantages a lot of times there's too much subjectivity to it. Yes. Where basically like he looked like he was kind of fighting out because he winced or whatever, but you can get other people where they'll like their foot could be ready to break and they're stone cold. They're okay with it breaking, and it's not a good testament as to whether or not the joint lock was really in. And so I wish that it was just more of like points or no points, and be a little bit more hard on the stalling calls. I'll have to watch some of those matches and try to find them, because I was talking to someone and they were talking about jiu-jitsu being an Olympic sport, and I told them that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it being an Olympic sport, because then you're going to have a central governing body that's going to say, this is how we do it. Just like judo, right? Judo says, this is how we do judo now. And we don't do takedowns on the legs anymore. We don't do kataguruma, fireman's carry. But that said, if it was going to be an Olympic sport, you're going to have to change the rules to make people fight so it becomes more action packed, because a lot of times, guys, there's just too much passivity. I think what's the time limit?
6 minutes.
Yeah, see, 6 minutes is perfect. 6-7 minutes. Perfect. You don't need to make a jiu-jitsu match 10 or 20 minutes. It's ridiculous. No. It's so long. And the thing is nobody. I've rarely, they happen every now and then. Rarely will you see two guys go out there for a 10 or 20 minute match and just go wide open, go after each other. Most of the time, they start off nice and slow, and they kind of like start to ramp up a little bit. But I think like a 6 or 7 minute match, like I think it was the Abu Dhabi World Pro some years ago. I was watching some of their matches and breaking them down for the students, and I think they had a 7-minute time limit, and all of the matches were exciting. They were quick on the stalling calls, and the matches were so fast paced because you've only got 6 or 7 minutes. So guys are every good black belt who's in shape can go for 6 minutes.
Exactly. And that's something that is really good. That's why I really like 6 minutes, because first of all, you can win anybody in 6 minutes, because if you play it smart, not by stalling, but just knowing how to do a point and then keep it that way, you have one good move, you can win everyone. And that's one thing. And the other thing is like, I don't think there's another sport that do 10-minute round. Like, if you look at boxing, it's 3-minute rounds times 6, 9, whatever degree you do it on, but you have breaks in between.
Sure.
Jiu-Jitsu, it's 10 minutes. So the Pan Ams are the black belts are going to go on Saturday this week. Yeah. And some of them will have 6 fights.
Yeah.
It's like 2 hour of a training. It's a competition, but it's a training. Yeah. It's 10-minute fight. Then you have a 10-minute break, and again and again. That's insane for the amount of cardio and the amount of endurance your body needs to do to win a competition like that.
Right.
And
Well, then
people are smart. They're going to say, okay, my first fight, I don't know this guy, so I'm going to take the safe way. I'm going to play it safe. And then some fights will going to look boring because of that.
Right. Well, if you go to the Abu Dhabi, and then like sometimes those matches are 20 minutes, and I mean, you watch them and it's like nothing really. I mean, you'll have your moments,
Yes,
but it's not action packed. It's like basically there are matches that are action packed, but then some of the matches they're like they kind of just filling each other out, and then they'll kind of go for a little bit, and then they'll go back to being slow for a little bit, and I think it would be just one of those things where you look at wrestling. Wrestling is a really fast paced sport, and as the people get better and better, they don't push the time to, like, for instance, like white belts in some competitions might start off at 5 minutes, and then a black belt's going to go for 10. They don't double the time in wrestling.
No.
You know what I mean? I think they add an extra. I think there's an extra minute on there, but it's not like double the time. They just go faster in that same amount of time than they did when they were in high school, kind of thing.
It looks way more impressive.
Oh yeah.
If you look at wrestling, it's in my opinion at least, wrestling is way more exciting to watch for someone who doesn't know the sport than judo, for example.
Sure.
Not because judo is not an exciting sport, but the rule set are making it look like not an exciting sport. Like you said, there's a moment that can look very exciting, but the fight itself can be like, one guy is fighting for the grip. So if you know the sport, you know how hard it is to get the grip. But if you don't know the sport, at the end of the day, it's a spectator sport. You want the people that don't know the sport to get excited when they see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that should come, to get the sport more exciting. It's changing the rule set to make it exciting, but it should also come from the training room. Mm-hmm. So the coaches need to train the athletes to want to make an impressive fight.
Sure.
Again, I'm not disrespecting anyone who won by advantage, but if you win by advantages, then you need to ask yourself, do I fight really tough guys that I don't know how to beat and I need to work on that, or I'm just trying not to lose, so I always win by this little amount of point, and then go back to the training ground and really start to see how you can submit the guys, how you can finish the fight. That's why people like Roger Gracie, Marcelo Garcia, they are so exciting because they had a legacy behind them, because they really tried to finish the fights.
Yeah. I think if you're winning by an advantage, it's fine if it happens. I've won by an advantage before, but I'm always trying to chase the submission, right? That's what I want ultimately, is I want to try to finish the fight, because that's like for us in jiu-jitsu, that's the ultimate. It's the knockout in boxing, it's the ippon jiu-jitsu, it's the pin in wrestling. It's
and if you make the fight 6 minutes, then I'll start the other way. If the fight is 10 minutes, then I expect the other athletes at the last minute, if he wins by point, to close up and just waiting for the win, because if I'm winning by points, you need to chase after me. I don't need to expose myself for other techniques. But if the fight is 6 minutes, then the guy that is losing will always be able to push the pace of the fight, because he have enough cardio to do that. So even if I'm really closing up at the last minute, he has enough energy to get something out of it, and the fight will look way more exciting because of that.
Agreed.
Do you have a preferred rule set? Do you like gi, no gi? Do you like submission only? What do you like to do? What do you feel like? What do you prefer? And then maybe what your style is geared best towards?
It's an interesting question, because like recently I really started to enjoy no-gi a lot, because we start to do it a lot in our academy, because we have some competition that the upcoming competition that we're doing is only no-gi. So we started to really focus on the no-gi for that time.
Sure.
So at the moment I really enjoy no-gi, but I really enjoy both of them, because it's both of them are a part of the sport. So I really want to get good at. I really want to have a good system for both of them.
Sure.
To understand really what works for me in gi and really what works for me in no gi. But I found out that if you really want to get good at no gi, so first of all, have a really good takedown.
You got to wrestle.
Really good takedowns. Yeah, you got to wrestle. If you're a really good wrestler, then automatically like you have a really huge advantage on the other guy, because it will be almost impossible to sweep you. You know, if you understand the jiu-jitsu, just scramble up on to stand up again and then take the guy down again, and then add some leg locks, some really good leg locks attack, butterfly guard, do some X guards and stuff like that, and body locks. When you pass the guard with a body lock, especially if you're a wrestler, you're going to pass everyone's guard. So like that's, I think, a good system that can work for you in a nogi match.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a guy that's it's funny. We have a guy that's a 3-time national champion, and he's starting to train in the gi right now. And it's funny, like I get to I'm sure that the game would be totally different if I haven't rolled with him, I don't think, in no-gi, but in gi we have. So I have handles and I have, lapels and stuff. So it's a little more interesting. But yeah, I'm sure, if he's got a wrestling, such a high wrestling game already that, in no-gi, he's going to have such a huge advantage just, with the takedowns and the mobility he's got and just kind of the explosiveness.
And body awareness. He knows
Absolutely.
where to pose. He just need to know what to avoid. They get frustrated at the beginning because they put their head down because it's wrestling. They have to put their head close to your hips, to your chest. Then they get triangles. But the moment they understand how to avoid the triangles and to avoid the omoplatas, then they're almost unstoppable. You have to only attack the legs. And,
that's a big thing. I think the legs is kind of, in some ways, it's a big equalizer because you can. It almost kind of breaks the rules in a lot of ways, right? Because when I started, it was like you have to position before submission type of thing. That's not always the case in leg locks. I mean, you can transition straight into an attack from many different positions.
Yeah, there's something really interesting that happens when purple belt moved to brown belt, and if he competes, the whole fight gets a new strategy all of a sudden, because you can't expose your leg too much, especially now in the nogi, in the IBJJFs, they allow heel hooks from brown belts. But even before that, you go from only straight foot locks that, like you said, if you have a good durability, then you're not going to tap from a straight foot lock. You said, okay, make it break or whatever. But the moment you add knee bars and hold, that the game is completely different. You can use that to gain points, and you can always attack. You can jump on a toe hold, jump on a Victor Estima, and finish the guy like at the last second of the match, like Hail Mary. So that changed the game, and you need to know how to deal with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the Nogi Worlds this year with the changes that they've made. To see who comes out on top since they're adding all these heel hooks in there, because that's always been the thing about the IBJJF tournaments. People would say, well, they're not always the best guys. They're just the guys that are avoiding leg locks. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when you have all these guys in there like shooting for the legs. In an IBJJF tournament and see who happens. Now I think they have heel hooks available at brown belt and up. Is that just for adult, or did they include that in masters as well? I can't remember.
Only adults.
Only adult. Okay.
Yeah.
So they left
in IBJJF. I thought it was so it's only adult, not
only
masters.
adult. They left they left the old guys out of it. They said their knees are all broken anyway.
Oh wow. I didn't know that. I was like, it's I haven't competed a black belt yet, and I was just thinking about it.
I think eventually they'll probably do it. I think it's probably their way of. I think it's their way, because here's the reality: a lot of those guys that are in masters divisions either grew up at a different time in jiu-jitsu when leg locks weren't a thing, or they're people that are possibly more resistant to the leg locks because they're set in their ways. So it's probably their way of like, it's the old guys anyway. The younger generation wants to do leg locks anyway. So we'll let the adults go after it. And then probably as those adults become masters, they'll probably have the leg locks go into the other divisions as well.
And they have to, to show something to fight against all the fight to win and all the super fight organization, because nogi is the next best thing right now. Everybody wants to do like submission only stuff, and heel hooks are a thing right now, so they have to allow it at some point in time. But I think it will just differentiate the gi and the no gi. A lot of guys will focus only on the gi, and a lot of guys will focus solely on the no gi in black belts. I mean, when like the professional level.
Yeah.
Where do you see jiu-jitsu going? Obviously, this evolution of the leg locks has gotten very popular. Do you see anything? Do you anticipate anything coming up?
Well, I like in jiu-jitsu, you can see that whenever somebody comes with something new or something that wins a lot, then some other guys will try to find a way to avoid it, and then they will try to find a counter, and it goes back and forth. You know, when the berimbolo start to be really exciting, a lot of people will just do the basic berimbolo. Nowadays, it's really hard to finish like the berimbolo to the back take. Some people can do it, of course, but it's not so easy like it used to be. And then the warm guard became a thing, and a lot of people will just trying to do the basic warm up and warm guard. And nowadays, nobody do the basic warm guard. They do like different types of that sweep. And now leg locks are really a thing, but a lot of people start to study. A lot of the techniques are out there. You just need to either buy the instructional or just, you know, look it up or watch some fights. So it's easy to learn and see and adapt and evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think takedowns are now the next best thing. A lot of guys will really focusing on, you know, taking the guy down and start to play on top, which is really exciting because I think I really like to be, you know, to pass a guard than just to sweep.
If people want to get a hold of you, first of all, where can they do that? And then also, I think you got an instructional out as well, so people can kind of learn from you in that way.
Yeah, well, on Instagram, I'm at Tomer Alroy, so I post a lot of techniques and tips and BJJ content on my Instagram page. I'm also working right now on, you know, building up my YouTube page as well, which is Tomer Alroy. I'm going to post a lot of mindset stuff on my YouTube channel, and some more explanations on the techniques that I do on my Instagram. And some sparring footage. And I have a website as well, which is tomeralroy.com, which I post a lot of like the content on the mindset exercise and so forth. And my instructional is on BJJ Fanatics. It's a competition tested gi, which I go deep into a lot of drills, a lot of warm-ups, a lot of competition training, explaining all of the methods and showing some of the lapel cuff that I like to do in competition. It's a system with the lapel that we like to play a lot in my gym. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking. I was checking out his website. He's got the picture with you training with Hoffa there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
The white mats, I believe, and then like the little
circle behind it. Yeah. Man, I was so excited in that picture because you can see me smiling.
Oh, bro, your smile is from ear to ear.
Yeah. Well, because I tell people, like, they told me, like, because, you know, private training with him is pretty expensive, but
Sure.
I tell them, like, if you can have a chance to play basketball with Michael Jordan one-on-one.
I was going to say the same thing. Michael Jordan, yeah.
It's the same. It's one thing to talk with the guy or with your training inspiration, I mean, and it's another to train with him and get advices from him, you know. Like I did a training camp at AOJ before a world championship in the UWW organization, and he gave me a lot of tips, you know, because one of the Meow's brother was in the same category with me in that competition. So we really had a game plan against, you know, what to do if I'm going to fight him. And, you know, that really struck. You know, I took second place at that competition, and I had a really good competition, a really good training camp, and I felt like he really helped me a lot during those times. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also something to be said about the energy of people, right? Like I'm big into this where, you know, I've paid money to do private lessons or to meet mentors in business and everything else. And it's sometimes not even just the things the exact things they say, but just being in the presence of those people sometimes, and the way that they do things, the way that they proceed, and their outlook on things and their perspective, sometimes that stuff just kind of rubs off on you. And that can be very valuable in itself. You know, even if they don't say this is specifically what you need to do, a lot of times there's value in just being in the presence of those people, like you said, that you use as inspiration and that sort of thing.
Yeah, when you when you train with champions, it's not just getting you better technically, but they see how they act and how they approach training and how consistent they are with their training. So it makes you push yourself a little bit more than what you used to do if you don't have a good environment to do that.
Yeah.
You get to see what the professionals do, and that's kind of interesting. That's a level of accessibility that we have in jiu-jitsu that's kind of unique, because I mean, hardly anybody that's a regular person is going to play with Michael Jordan, get tips from him. But you could go and train with the Mendez brothers. You could go and train with Andre Galvao and those guys, and it's just some of the best names and some of the highest achieving practitioners in the game, which is really like Chewy said, like it's like you almost get to like feel their energy and what their mindset's like and kind of how they carry themselves. And like some of that, if you can take a little bit of that, I think it gives you a little taste, a little inspiration too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you always imagine like they're doing something unique, and when you come and train with them and you see what they do, it's like, oh, this is it. This is like how the professionals are doing it.
It's like, what's the secret, right? Like, what's the secret?
And then you find out there's no secret. You just need to work hard and be consistent. That's it.
Yeah, and they all have like a unique, like, I don't know if it's like something that makes them a little unique. Is there something about the Mendez brothers that maybe makes them a little bit different that you found that makes them unique?
Yeah, of course. But I think a good example for uniqueness is George St. Pierre. Because I had a chance to train with him once when he visited Israel, and again, like I grew up idolizing him. Like in MMA, he's my idol because he's like the representation of what a great champion should fight, train, look, everything. And well, it seems like his mentality is like he has such a will to win and not embarrassing himself in front of his fans, that's helped him push himself to be better. In addition to being his attention to details and how he really likes martial arts. Like he really is a martial artist. He really enjoys training and learning and trying new moves and trying new techniques and trying new martial arts. But when he goes up and fight, he's telling himself, like, I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to embarrassing myself. So I'm going to win that fight. I think the Mendez brothers, both of them are really amazing fighters, amazing athletes. And you can see that how they grew up, a lot of like really good black belts right now. They have a few black belts that are competing this weekend, which are really amazing fighter as well. And I think it's the same type of mindset that they have.
It's interesting.
Tomer, man, thank you for taking the time with us, man. I know it's getting late up in Israel. I appreciate you taking time. Do you think you'll be in the States anytime coming up?
Yeah, we're planning to go. I think it's on December before the Worlds. We're going to be there. Of course, now it's hard to schedule anything right now, but the plan is that we're going to visit the United States in December. And maybe we're going to have another super fight on October, but I'm not. We're scheduling that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing Nogi Worlds?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. I don't know right now, but we are planning some of the competition. We're playing with the team. We do know for sure right now that we're going to do the AGP Europe that they have, and another competition, the JJIF competition in Abu Dhabi, which is a world championship. And we're trying to see what we can do before that.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that podcast with us and Tomer. Earlier in this podcast, when I was telling you about the fine sponsors that we have on our podcast, one of which is Charlotte's Web, I misspoke and said that it was 20% off. It's not 20% off. It's 15% off. And you on anything on their website. So that's 15% off, not 20%. If you go to charlottesweb.com, promo code again being Jiu-Jitsu. Again, it just is something simple. If you're one of the people like me that enjoys the product, I've quickly become a bit of a fanatic for them. Like, again, it's one of those things where we went out there to their farm. I was like, this is dope. Like this, it's like one of those things where even one of the guys that I guess he works for a different division in them, to give you an idea of the kind of like conscious people that some of them are. Like he won't wear like normal name brand clothing because they make it in sweatshops. So he's like, no, I'm not wearing that. He's like, I have to pay like for really expensive stuff that's made in, made in places where it's sustainable and it's treating people correctly, right? In a way that we would say is right. Whereas, most of the stuff clothing wise is, made in not such good conditions, poor conditions. And so that's the kind of people that are working there. So again, it's always good to be aligned with a company like that. So check him out. Also check out Matt. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner making jiu-jitsu gear, rash guards, shorts, t-shirts, and apparel, all that stuff for jiu-jitsu people. And it's at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is jiu-jitsu. And we'll keep you guys up to date with the future rash guards and shorts we're going to get made through Matt. And then again, guys, if you want to join the email list, and again, get access to any of the stuff that I have coming up and basically get first crack, first dibs at any events, any products, anything that I have going on, the email list is the way to go. Like I recently released a book and people saw it and they're like, how can I get that? I'm like, well, you should have joined the email list because that's who gets first crack at it. And the email list, the Chew Crew they're a rabid bunch of people, right? And so anytime they're rabid in a good way, right? And so whenever I throw something on there, I mean, like the books were gone. We sold out of the Jiu-Jitsu camp at my place within a day. We recently just had our Costa Rica trip. We sold out in 4 hours.
That's crazy. How many people?
I forgot. It's we've never sold out all of it.
That's crazy.
Never sold it. It's 4 hours, bro. And so. Wow. The email list is the people that get first crack before anyone else does. So again, if you guys want to get up to date on that, that's the place to go to, jiujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And that's it, guys. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast today, we would appreciate a review. It helps a lot. Lets us know you're listening, and we'll give you a shout out on the next podcast to let you know that we saw it and that we appreciate you mucho big time.
That's right.
Mucho big time. Grande.
There you go, Chewy.
Yeah.
Grande big time.
I've been working on my French a little bit.
Grande mucho.
Yeah, grande mucho. We're working on my French. It's actually funny. I use the word mucho with my like Hispanic friends. It means a lot to them.
But
that's a good one.
That's pretty good.
I said that
pretty darn good.
I said that to one of my Cuban students. He looked at me. He's like, God, you're so stupid.
That is exactly the reaction. That's exactly what you're supposed to. If they're like, oh, that's a good joke. That's not the same. It's supposed to be like, that was horrible. They're supposed to be horrible jokes.
Yeah, I was like, I came up to me. He was in the middle of like drilling a technique, and I was like, "Hey, David." He goes, "What?" I said, with all my Spanish speaking friends, man, I use the word mucho with them." And he looks at me. He's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it means a lot to them." He's like, "Oh, you're so awful." Oh, here's another good one for you guys. Another dad joke to send you on the way. What do you call a grim reaper that can't hear? Deaf. Deaf.
That was awful.
That's a great one. What are you talking about? Awful. That's
boy.
Comedy, bro.
That's
you would know,
bro.
You wouldn't know comedy if it was at its house because it has the sniffles, and so it doesn't want to like possibly get you sick, which it is right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but we are finished. It is over. Podcast is over, people. Go home, everyone.
Go home. You might be home. What if they're right home right now?
I don't know. Stay home, people.
Stay home.
Thank you guys for listening to us ramble and chat about stuff. We love doing it.
Yeah, we like throwing you guys dad jokes. Maybe we should start doing that. Maybe we should start ending the show with a dad joke.
All right, Chewy.
I've got an
This is the moment. This is literally the moment you've been waiting for this whole time. We've been doing this podcast. It's 172 episodes.
Yeah.
This is the moment you've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Here it is. Dad jokes. It's just gonna be a dad joke. We should do a whole dad joke podcast.
No, I think it's too much for a full podcast. I think it's just nice to like
just a little bit, just a little end, just a little nightcap.
Well, here's the thing, because here's what's going to happen. I know, like you guys listening, you might be rolling your eyes when I said that Grim Reaper joke, but I know what's going to happen. You're going to go use that. You're going to say, you know what? Like, I'm going to use this on someone because dad jokes are just like, they're fun.
I want video evidence of somebody using that joke on somebody, recording their person that they're trying to quote unquote get.
Well, you can't pull out the phone because then they know something's up.
No, you set it up beforehand and then like, hey, you know, deaf. Ha. And that's it.
Is that how you tell dad jokes, Eugene?
It is. It is.
That's why your dad jokes aren't funny.
They're horror. They're not. None of them are funny. That's the point. They're not supposed to be funny. They're supposed to be dumb.
Well, no, I mean, like my dad jokes are funny. Yours are not because you have poor delivery.
Probably.
I mean, look at the way that you just did it. You just said, deaf,
deaf.
You
know, you get the point, right?
I made you laugh.
Out of pure disgust and
hey, look, bro, it don't matter how it happened. You laughed
a little chuckle, a little chuckle squeaked its way out. All right, guys. Well, I hope if you all have been still hanging out with us, thank you.
Yeah, and if you've been hanging out with us this long, I'm gonna throw one more at you. Let's go ahead and no, we're doing the dad joke. I'm gonna remind you again to leave us a review because if you've listened to us this far, that means you're like a special breed of person. Either that or you just have nothing else going on. I don't know.
Oh, don't say that. No,
hey,
you've got plenty going on. You just choose to hang out with us.
Listen, it's one of those two things. It's either you're a special breed of human being, which I'm okay with, or you have nothing going on. And in either case, right? In either case, if you have nothing going on, then hey, take like 10 seconds out and give us a little bit of a review. Give us some stars.
So many 1-star reviews because of this. They're gonna be like, screw you guys, 1 star.
And
I listen to the end, 1 star.
If you're just a special breed of person that really enjoys what we bring to the table, then cool. Then down with supporting us. So either way, it's a win-win. Win-win.
Win-win-win.
Win-win. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. And I'm just like
trying to lengthen this.
All right, guys. Talk to you next week.
See y'all.